Hi and welcome back. Before I can get started on today's project, I have to do some masking. I've cut out some circles and temporarily adhered them onto my tag using the Zig 2-way glue. I'll also be using this glue for my second layer of masking. I just put down some dots and then you need to wait until it turns from a blue colored adhesive into a transparent adhesive. When it's blue, it's a permanent glue, but when it becomes transparent, you can use it as a temporary adhesive. Time to start stamping, and I'm using the Organics background stamp from Visible Image. Now I'm stamping on top of 2 layers of masking and on top of texturized watercolor paper, so I'll need to go back in a couple of times. I'll also be stamping at the bottom of my tag, so I'm making sure that I don't have a hard edge and I'm feathering out my ink at the bottom of my stamp. Before I start stamping at the bottom of my tag, I'm marking off the place where my blending needs to happen. I'm using a water-soluble marker to mark the edge onto my Misty itself, and that way I know where my inky border needs to be. And as it's a water-soluble marker, I just clean it off afterwards using some water. I'll try to have a smooth blending without any hard lines, so I'm only having little ink going on at that edge. Now to smooth out the transition between the top stamping and the stamping on the bottom, I'm using a waterproof marker. I'm filling in the white spaces and I'm also going to go around my circles. You can see the stamp didn't get all the way up to the edges because of the paper. So I'm smoothing that part out too, so my circles get nice clean edges. Next step is going around my circles using a charcoal pencil. That way I'll have the borders of my circles that are now standing in my white space. And then I can go and remove my masks. And as you can see, I'm really bruising my paper, I'm even tearing it. So that will need some fixing. So the first thing I'm doing is very softly scrape around my edges of my torn paper. I'm using my old and trustworthy X-Acto knife for this, and I'm only using the edge, so I'm not cutting into my paper. I'm just scraping it from different directions. You can also very softly use an eraser, but be careful as that can easily end up in tearing away even more paper. And then I go in with a spoon to smooth out everything again. It's a trick that I've shown before when I had masking fluid tearing up my paper, and I linked to that video for you. As there was quite some bruising going on, I chose to wet the fibers of my paper and just have it air dry before adding in my color. Now my circles are completely dry, I can go and add in my color. I'm going for the quinacridone gold and olive green today. To get my circles to stand out even more, I'm going back in with my charcoal pencil. The words I'm using today come from this She Smiled set from Visible Image. I have cut up the stamp, and that makes it very easy to only ink up part of the set. Before I can glue down my words, I want to add some glossy accents on my circles as I want them to look like gloss. I keep my bottle upside down to avoid having air bubbles as much as possible. Make sure you don't touch your paper with your nozzle and don't overwork it so you don't make scars in your paper or move around your colors. Now if you do get an air bubble, just pop it with a needle or something like that, or when they are in too deep, just drag them to the border.